What's up, everybody? Welcome back to at least initially a Patreon episode, and I might throw it at the end of an upcoming Nerd Rage episode if I have a Nerd Rage episode that ends up being a little shorter. Oh boy, am I looking forward to this. We are going to talk about the episode 9 leaks. They are pretty much, they're fairly extensive. There's only a few kind of elements I feel like that are missing. Joining me today is not the usual kind of suspects. Joining me today is Tyler the Collector.
What's going on, everybody?
You might know him from Enter the Realm on Monday nights, as well as he was on the Skull Affair. He was on Nerd Rage 200. He also helped with my bathroom, so I'll never forget that as well from now on. And then also, I wanted to introduce this next gentleman. This is the first time that you're hearing him kind of in the cool table, so to speak. But you've heard me speak about this guy. This is the guy that's been helping me behind the scenes that I am very appreciative of. And only thing I have to give him is a shout out. Unfortunately, I would like to do a lot more for him. He's been gathering information. He gathers news. He gathers little like tidbits of information, like the Cypher Diaz video that I did. He laid out all of that. I just had to like fluff it up, and that's kind of how he presents all the information to me. Andy from Ireland.
How y'all doing? Very flattering.
Oh, please, Andy, you're 21.
I'm 21.
And
I'm a youngin.
And you're Irish.
Wow.
Yep, I am. God knows how many thousand miles away.
How many kids? How many kids do you have?
I don't have any kids. I don't have any kids. I am the eldest of
oh man, you're not
four others.
I thought you were real Irish.
You thought I was married and had like 2 kids, working a pub or picking a potato field or some shit.
I got Irish in my family, and I'll tell you, many people, I feel like couples around the world dread when their significant other hits the time of the monthly cycle area where just part of life. It's celebrated here. It's a celebration here. Like we dodged a bullet one more month. So it's a bit of a party.
I think it's a celebration everywhere, but I don't think that's unique to America.
Oh no, because I feel like people are like, oh man, she's on her period. She's gonna be moody. It's just gonna be there's no passion. There's gonna this and that. And I'm like, yeah, we did it again. I knew getting drunk before each session was a good idea. Anyway, so. Dude, it doesn't matter.
Hell, man.
Yeah. So let's move into this. So we're gonna go through this. Andy has laid this out for me. I'm gonna be doing a series of videos on this eventually, but it's gonna take me so long to do this because it's so much that I figured we'd give the Nerd Rage folks something to hold them over, especially since Adam's not there to kind of discuss it with me, and nobody wants to discuss spoilers with me. So, all right. So these sources for these leaks, we should talk about this too. And Greg and I spoke about it recently, but they're coming from 3 sources: Making Star Wars, Jedi Paxis on Reddit, I feel like mainly, and Bespin Bulletin, which is on Instagram. And they're all kind of working together, and they're all kind of getting similar information, and they seem to have different leaks because not everything lines up, but it's all similar. So let's begin. The film will...
Remarkable.
Are you ready?
Oh, sorry.
I'm so excited, dude. All right. The film will open with 2 masked individuals. Oh, wait, you know what? Real quick, just in case the title didn't warn you, this is nothing but spoilers.
I can't believe you have to say that.
The 4 minutes and 4 seconds you just heard is the only part of this that won't be spoilers. So click off now if you don't want to hear it. The film will open with 2 masked individuals practicing lightsaber combat. According to MakingStarWars.net, the 2 are helmeted. One of them, clearly the teacher, suddenly stops, removing his helmet to reveal a Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker, asking Leia, the other combatant, what's wrong. Luke senses a change in Leia, who informs him of her plans to give up her training, owning to the coming birth of her son, placing the scene sometime under 1 year after the Battle of Endor. We then hear Rey's voice shouting Master Leia, which cuts to the current time period, revealing the flashback to have been in Leia's head. Leia has apparently taken on the mantle of training Rey at the Resistance new base on a forest world. According to Bespin Bulletin, Rey is meditating, floating with her legs crossed, much like Luke in The Last Jedi. She apparently grows frustrated, asking Leia to allow her to do something more physical, which is the lightsaber training sequence we see in the trailer. Let's stop there. How do we feel about all that?
I feel very good about it.
I love this.
I think it sounds interesting.
Yeah,
I think it sounds good.
But Tyler, I feel like Tyler's going to be the contrarian. He's often the contrarian. So what does Tyler have?
I can be the contrarian. I find it interesting that they're helmeted to kind of start with.
I'm guessing that.
Well, from what I read,
go ahead.
taken up, it's because it's kind of a reveal.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
The scene plays out for 20 or 30 seconds, and the audience, because this came from a couple of different sources, but mainly I think it was Making Star Wars. They said that it plays out for maybe 20 or 30 seconds, and you're kind of like, oh, who are these? And then they pull off the mask, and it's like, oh, shit. That's kind of the idea as far as I know.
Right. The helmets are really just there to have the reveal moment.
Yeah. So
there's no other purpose.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming we're gonna get more de-aged, right? So kind of curious how that's gonna look. It's been a little inconsistent from movie to movie.
Well, so let me say this, because I think that's a good point, and it's a matter of contention sometimes. So we praise, it's the same company behind all this shit, right? It's all fucking ILM. So we praise them with Marvel, but we're more critical of them with Tarkin and Leia. But I don't feel like they de-aged Leia in Rogue One, and they didn't de-age Tarkin because he's dead. So like, they're not going to be de-aging Leia in this one either, right? That's just the cold truth of it, like properly. But they will be de-aging Hamill. So I expect Hamill to be well done and Leia to be good enough, is my expectation.
Well, and I mean, all right, so don't get me wrong. Like, Leia in Rogue One was good, but it looked like something out of a Star Wars video game. Like, something just wasn't
There's just
quite
something.
right.
There's something slightly off. It's like it's just one of those things where your subconscious brain tells you this isn't human. She
looked like one of those statues or one of those wax figures out of Madame Tussauds. You know, where they're like 90% there?
Yeah.
Like, it's clearly who it's meant to be, but like, there's something not right when you get a photo. That's how it looked. I remember when I saw that in the theater, I said, "Oh fuck!" out loud. I didn't think it looked very good.
So I suspend disbelief with it. It works fine for me. I think Tarkin looks great.
I agree. I think Tarkin looks incredible.
Well, okay, I agree with you, but I think you also have more to work with there with the age and age spots and everything else.
Yeah, maybe you might be right there.
But okay.
So this is, I think that it'll be nice to see a training session between Luke and Leia, just for kind of like getting to see it, and then I think juxtaposing that with Leia kind of picking up Rey's training, like where Luke left off, to the best of her ability, that works for me.
Well, I think it'll help alleviate some of the tension out of Episode 8, where she like force pulls herself back into the ship too.
Mm-hmm.
I was about to make the same point.
Yeah, so we're lending some credibility to how strong she actually is in the Force, and then where is it that she insinuates that she's got a lightsaber or something in the desk?
I don't know.
I don't know about the desk. Her having a lightsaber is, I mean, look, we're going into spoilers anyway, but her having a lightsaber is definitely a part of this movie.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that. But I also like we hear like this training session is on Endor, and I've heard that the training session with Rey and Leia might be on Yavin. Which
is
okay.
The name of the planet, I could not find it for hell. Like, there's a lot of speculation about it being Yavin or maybe Endor, but there doesn't seem to be a concrete name, which I found interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if it is just Yavin, especially with it being, the final planned movie of this saga.
Right.
Well, we saw. No, I was gonna say we saw glimpses of this in that D23, right? Like where the lightsabers flying through the forest, and, like cuts the tree. So so what we have seen of it, like the sequence looks good.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I like the idea, like all of it so far. I'm 100% on board, and it even gave me this Luke and Leia training session that I didn't think I'd ever see. You know what I mean? Like, that to me is a bonus. And when Greg and I spoke about it for our Patreon thing recently, we were here at that time. We were hearing conflicting information. We were hearing it opens with a Rey and Leia scene, and we were also heard that it opens with a Rey and Luke scene. But now, as it's kind of more and more is coming out, it makes more sense that it's like the answer is both.
Well, and it like to me, it makes the end of 8 that much better too.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's another thing, man. Like, I don't know what it is about Star Wars, but people forget that it's part 2 of a story. You know, like, I don't know. It shit pisses me off. But that's a conversation for another day. So let's continue. We then cut back to the current. I was going to get it over there. Meanwhile, a still conflicted Supreme Leader Kylo Ren has been searching for a dark power he believes was connected to Snoke in some way, much to the chagrin of General Hux and Pride, who see it as a waste of time and resources. On a forest planet bathed in red light, Kylo leads the First Order in a slaughter to find a mysterious MacGuffin he believes shares a link to the power behind Snoke. He is apparently seeking out someone called the Oracle, a spider-like alien who is in possession of a device once owned by Darth Vader. The Oracle teases Kylo, mentioning his affinity or connection to Rey. The device is a wayfinder, which contains navigational coordinates to chart into the unknown regions. It is described as a red triangle, possibly a Sith holocron. Using these coordinates, Kylo arrives above a planet in the unknown regions. According to Making Star Wars, this area of the galaxy is hellish and not entirely stable, with gravity wells, solar storms, and all manner of other problems making uncharted exploration or escape impossible. Kylo lands outside a giant gas cube that's floating above the ground. Reaching the center, an elevator brings him below the planet's surface, and I'm going to stop right there. So let me say what I feel about this. Here is MacGuffin number 1. And because I do have, just in reading these spoilers and stuff, I do have some issues with them. And the MacGuffins end up playing a part in it. So he's trying to find this thing, and the First Order people think it's a waste, which makes sense. A waste of time, energy, effort, and resources. The scene in the trailer or the teaser where he picks up that guy and slams him on the ground is going to be when he's trying to find it.
Yep.
And then he comes upon the baby pig-headed spider monster and gets the Wayfinder. So the somebody go ahead.
I mean,
good man.
No. I was going to say the description of the monster sounds kind of stupid.
Yeah.
But like, I have faith that they're going to pull it off. The way, and even some of the merch right now that's being peddled out of Galaxy's Edge, like, it wouldn't surprise me if this thing's shaped like a Sith holocron.
Right. I hope so.
And it ties it kind of back into some of the current marketing that's happening with Star Wars in general. So, and I mean, we've kind of got this chase kind of a thing anyway, right? Like, we had it in Episode 8, like looking for the like Luke's coordinates, etc. So, I mean, or in 7 into 8, right? So, I think if it's I don't want to say a grail quest, but I mean, if it's a actionable lever to kind of propel this story forward, like, to me, it makes sense. And again, if it has something tied to Vader, like, it makes sense that Kylo wants it. Just like he's got the helmet, he wants the lightsaber, basically anything he can get his hands on.
Correct.
That used to belong to Vader. So, I mean, it makes sense. And at the same time, we know that Hux isn't exactly a fan of Kylo, or even, it seems like, the Force in general. So, to me, it makes sense that, like, he's wanting to go one direction and Kylo's wanting to go another.
Sure.
I think it sounds great. I think the idea of it being a holocron as well is interesting. I like the idea of seeing one of those on screen. And another thing, I know you mentioned the pig-headed monster, the Oracle. I remember about 3 or 4 months ago, and I was going to send the picture to you, Bobby, when I sent you this, but Making Star Wars got a description of that character, and this was about 4 months ago, and they described it, and they drew a picture based on that description. And a couple of days ago, some Force Friday t-shirts had a picture of that exact, like, it matched the description perfectly.
Oh, really?
All this, for anyone who's listening, yeah, it was exact. Like, it was clearly, like, anyone out here who's saying, is this real, is it not? I don't know if it's all real, but I can personally guarantee you, from having done the research,
that's
like,
real.
I would say a solid 80% of it is on point. Like, it all lines up.
Yeah. So here's another one of my concerns.
Well,
Go ahead.
Well, no, I was gonna say I even remember hearing the description for Solo. I can't think of the thing's name now. The one that's running the underground, like the giant worm. What's her name?
Madam Prox.
Madam Prox.
Yeah, and like I remember hearing the descriptions for that, and I'm like, that's gonna be dumb. But then when you see it, you're like, oh, it works.
Yeah, it's fine.
I thought she was awesome. She reminded me of something from a Henson.
Yeah, no, it's fine, but it does sound silly, and I think that the baby pig-headed spider monster sounds silly, but it might work also. But my concern with this is like, all right, this is all first act. There's a lot that we feel like needs to get wrapped up in this movie, and we're already introducing two new named characters, right? The Oracle and General Pride. And that's another one of my kind of ongoing issues that I'll explore a bit more as we go through this. But I need this quest of Kylo's to kind of make sense, because it does seem like an odd thing to throw into the third act of a story. The whole Wayfinder bit that ends up being a major component kind of all of this is my view.
See, my theory related to the whole Wayfinder thing, right, is this is spoilers for what we're going to discuss in a minute, but from what I've heard, there's no real information out there on how the Knights of Ren come into the story. They just kind of show up before they go to Pisana, which is, in a few minutes we'll talk about that. The thing about it is, my whole thing is that I reckon during 7 and 8, the Knights of Ren were out looking for these Wayfinder devices. For Kylo, maybe for Snoke, I don't know. But that's my theory on where they could have been, and that could kind of wrap them up, within the rest of the trilogy, if that makes sense. So it's not just coming out and over. But that's nothing but speculation on my part. I mean, there's no leaks to suggest that. It just seems logical to me.
Sure. I'm with that. So let's continue. So he's at this planet now following the Wayfinder, right? And he takes this elevator below the planet's surface. Here, an old dying man is being tended to by cloaked aides. He is described as incredibly old and decrepit and possibly dying. The man introduces himself as Darth Sidious, which Kylo instantly dismisses, knowing his grandfather destroyed Palpatine 30 years ago. Believing this must be some sort of trick, Kylo asks if the man is a clone. Palpatine affirms this is not the case. He survived the events of Episode 6. Apparently, the movie will give a more detailed explanation. He has spent the last 30 years gathering an unimaginably large fleet of Star Destroyers armed with Death Star tech, enough to easily sweep and bring the galaxy under dominion. A Sith fleet. Himself and Vader each had a Wayfinder device that would allow them to traverse to a hidden point in the unknown regions should the Empire have ever fell. Palpatine tells Kylo of the Force Dyad, where the Force creates two incredibly strong Force users who are stronger together than apart. Representing the positive and negative of the Force, the light and the dark brought together. He is dying and wants Kylo to find Rey and bring him to her so they can rule his revived empire and become stronger than he ever was. General Hux and General Pride are tasked with raising an army to operate this fleet, leading to the creation of the Sith Troopers, apparently just First Order soldiers now bearing the Sith legacy. He also tasks the First Order with rounding up children to raise as the next generation of soldiers. And let's stop there. Let me say the Force Dyad, right? So I don't hate it. But, and I'll tell you why I don't hate it. I don't hate it because it reminds me of the Clone Wars episode where I feel like they might be able to tie some sort of connection to that, where there was that father and then the son and the daughter that were making up the balance of the Force.
Yeah, it's a great episode.
Yeah. But once again, it's like it's a whole new piece of lore now that needs explanation. And then now there's news of a second Wayfinder, but at least they're explaining that the Wayfinder was for a specific purpose. Should the Empire ever fell, Vader and the Emperor could get away.
Well, and to me, like, that kind of makes sense, right? Like, you think of Nazis in World War II, like it's following, and we all jump on submarines and we end up in, Argentina or whatever.
Right.
Like, to me, it makes sense, and especially if they're able to communicate to one another, because who knows, like, chances are they're not going to be together when shit goes awry. So, to me, that portion of it makes sense as well. And I mean, to me, I guess I'm looking at, like, if you're talking about two pieces of the Force, to me, like, I think we've been looking at balancing the Force as a whole, where maybe it's more of like a scale, right? So you have to have the dark and the light, not somebody to extinguish the dark.
Right.
Does it make sense? So
that's very thematic of this trilogy as well. I mean, that was brought up in 8, the light and the dark, balance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. See,
but
it has to be. But like, okay, so here's the thing about it. Like, I don't know. I'll save that point to the end. But like, I want to get into, like, if Vader didn't destroy the Sith, what does that mean for Vader?
Yeah, I've been thinking that a lot too. I don't know what that means for the chosen one. I mean, it has to be brought up in this movie, I'm assuming. There's nothing about it in the leaks. The leaks don't cover everything.
Right. Yeah.
I feel that has to be addressed. I feel if that's not addressed, that will be a major flaw of the movie. Like, for me, for anyone who views these 1 through 9, you know what I mean? Not the casual moviegoer. That's a big thing for me. It has to be brought up.
Right.
I love the idea of the Diad.
Well, I mean, maybe it's just that. Maybe it's just lore. And maybe it's, it's kind of goes back to the Yoda-Luke conversations of, like, look, we thought this is what it was, but it's not. So maybe there never was a chosen one.
Yeah, maybe. But then what does that mean for Vader? Like, how does that play into, why does he matter? You know what I mean? Like, why the virgin birth? Why you know what I'm saying? Like,
the effect had on the galaxy and all that stuff. And I don't think it was. I mean, look, I wonder, will this be brought up in the movie? I still don't think it was a truly virgin birth.
No, they said in the comics. They said in the comics that Plagueis or Palpatine made him or whatever.
Well, it was ambiguous. I read that comic, but it heavily implied that Palpatine was responsible in some way for Anakin being created.
Right.
It is ambiguous. It could go either way.
Right.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you what else I'm not crazy about, and I think that they fixed this because as initial reports were coming out and this was coming out, I was like, Palpatine is not the guy to want to pass, like, hand down the reins.
No.
He's just not that dude.
That makes sense later in the story.
Right. No, I agree, and we'll get there.
I was gonna say it's just one more manipulation.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, he's dangling the carrot in front of Kylo to really
nail on the head, my friend.
Yep. To bring him what he really wants. You know what I mean? So, like, I could see it just being another farce for what he really wants. And, like, I kind of like the idea of the Death Star fleet. Like, hey, have you seen the image where somebody froze? Like, I'm sure you guys are both familiar. Like, where you see the fleet of the Star Destroyers, and, like, there's the big lightning cloud behind them.
Yes.
Have you seen the photo where somebody paused it and enhanced it and, like, lightened it?
So it's got the red stripes and the cannons underneath.
Yeah, so the ships have red stripes, and there is, like, a giant cannon where, like, if you think in, like, Episode 4, like, where the docking bay is on the bottom of it, there's these giant cannons on it.
Right.
So it actually looks pretty cool. And I mean, like, the Sith troopers in general look. I mean, I know they're just red, like, there's more enhancements,
but they still look cool.
Armor, whatever. But they look awesome. And like I have the hot toy, and, like, I love the thing. Like, it looks amazing.
I'm a sucker for that shit, man. Like, I'm just I've never met a trooper I didn't like. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, yep, that works. And
I don't know that teacup one. He's a little suspect. The rest of them are all right.
Which one was the teacup?
That hot toy that came out. It was one of the anniversary ones where it had, like,
I'm sorry. I mean in the movies, like, not some old,
no. I was talking more the grandma's China print.
Right.
I'm a little troopered out, to be honest with you. Like, we've got so many. And look, I'm a huge trooper guy. Like, I grew up on the Clone Wars. The clones collectively are some of my favorite Star Wars characters ever. But we've had so many versions of troopers these last, like, 4 years. It's crazy.
I agree. And don't get me wrong.
Troopers are cool.
I got all the stuff from Force Friday today. I literally got it all. I didn't get, like, variants.
I wanted that.
Yeah, I got everything. I got the whole Vintage Collection wave, the whole Black Series wave, and the GameStop exclusive. Like, I made a full sweep.
Get hopping on them reviews.
Yeah, I'm hopping on them. I should have one up starting Sunday and then running the gamut. But, like, doing that, right? I picked up let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 troopers today, I think. You know, like, so I get you. It is getting excessive, and I think I would have, like, I don't know how excited I am about the stuff that I picked up today. Like, I'm excited about the volume, but not necessarily the characters themselves, because, like, I got another Rey. I got another Kylo. I got a whole bunch of more troopers. It does.
That new Rey looks
it does. It does. It does look great.
Kylo looks trash, I think. I'm really disappointed with that Kylo.
Well, so in box, his head is slumped over. He looks a little bit better with his head up.
Yeah. I wish it had an unmasked Adam Driver head.
Oh,
I think
for
that's
sure.
so lazy.
For sure.
Like, I think if that was in the package, it would push it for me from, I'm passing, to, oh yeah, I want that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Especially,
definitely.
How many Kylos have we got in the last few years?
Yeah.
Do something to change. You know?
No, I hear you there. I'm not making excuses for that. Trust me, I'm in the same boat. And I mean, I'm gonna get the fucking SH Figuarts one too. So, you know, just because I don't have any sense, really. You know?
Can't help.
But let's stay focused here for a bit, though. Like, I think that I don't mind this, but so at least we're getting Palpatine. At least we're getting in the first act, you know. So like he's going to be solidified in the movie. It's not going to be some shit they throw in at the end of it, and I do like that.
Yeah. Oh, I.
So all right, so let's continue. All right. So back at the Resistance base, Poe and Finn return aboard the Falcon with secondhand information from a secret mole within the First Order, who has informed them about the Wayfinder device, but was killed before he could reveal more. Informing Leia, she sends Rey, Finn, Poe, and Chewbacca, BB-8, and C-3PO to the desert planet of Pasana to meet with a contact of hers who was apparently seeking a link to the unknown regions a long time ago and may be willing to help. Arriving on Pasana, the gang arrives in the midst of a massive festival, the Burning Man, and attempts to lay low until their contact arrives. Chewbacca really struggles to blend in. Rey encounters an alien who takes a liking to her and presents her with a necklace. Asking Rey her name and her family name, Rey responds that she doesn't have a family name. Needing to find Rey, Kylo... So do we have anything that we need to say there? It just sounds like I think the link is Lando, right? The person that's going to be on Pasana to help is Lando, and
it's standard.
Yeah, and that's a little convenient, but whatever. It's Star Wars. The universe is convenient. Other than that, I don't think there's anything necessarily worth talking about there. So
I think the festival could be fun. I thought it looked great.
Yeah. No, I agree. It could be fun, and also I think
with the weird smoke bomb firework things going off in the air.
Yes,
I thought that looked dope. Oh, it's really cool.
Yeah, no, I'm not mad at that.
It reminds me of one of those, like, you dress in white and you run the 5K, and then at the finish line everybody throws paint at each other kind of a thing.
But what was the other thing that oh shit. All right, I got to take care of this. What was I going to say, if anything? I like that Chewbacca has a hard time fitting in. Like, I like that a lot. Like, that he's like, you know, like, because he's a big, you know, dog man. And
8 foot tall. Big, 8 foot tall Sasquatch walking around.
Yeah, so I dig that. And otherwise, it just sounds like...
frustrated we're on a desert planet, though, to be honest with you.
Right.
Like, I mean, look, it doesn't sound like it's a huge part of the movie. It just sounds like it's a desert planet, and I get argument, not the argument, but like I've heard J.J. Abrams talk about it and about those kind of 4 or 5 elements of Star Wars and what he intrinsically believes makes up parts of the universe, and I get all that, but at the same time, it's another desert planet that looks like Jakku or Tatooine, but isn't either. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
It doesn't frustrate me that much. I'm kind of used to it at this stage, but I prefer it be something else, to be honest.
No, I hear you.
Interrupted. So you don't all think I'm rude as hell, anyone listening. I'm pretty sure I hear everything about 5 seconds after they say it, so I'm not an ass. You don't have to comment about it.
No worries. But yeah, I hear you. I hear you. All right, so let me continue here. Let's see. Discovers an alien, so we don't know who that alien is. So, fuck, I'm sorry. Asking Ray her name. I do like the family name thing, too. I wanted to talk about that. So she's going to have this moment where once again she says, I don't have a name. I think, like that's a good setup again. All right. So it says,
Chekhov's gunner.
Yeah. Asking Ray. Okay. So, needing to find Ray, Kylo reopens the Force link between himself and Ray, where he manages to grab her necklace and uses it to discover her location. Warning the gang that the First Order is on its way, they attempt to find the contact only for the contact to find them. Recognizing a hopelessly out-of-place Chewbacca, the contact is none other than Lando Calrissian. Lando informs our heroes of a dagger that may help them find what they seek. Many years prior, he went on a quest with Luke Skywalker to find this dagger, which was owned by a Sith loyalist named Ochi. Tracking him to Pisana, they found his ship abandoned but nothing else, and Lando has remained there ever since. Asking why he never left, Lando reveals that he had a young child at the time of the quest who was kidnapped by the First Order while on Pisana. Lando has remained there ever since, hoping to see his child again. This strikes a chord with Finn, who was taken from his own family by the First Order. Lando points our heroes in the direction of the last known coordinates of Ochi's ship, but decides to sit the adventure out. Arriving at Ochi's ship, Rey immediately recognizes it. It's the ship that left her on Jakku as a child. Briefly seen in The Force Awakens. Before the implications of this fully sink in, the ground below our heroes gives way, and they are sucked into a series of underground tunnels. Here they find the remains of Ochi and the dagger that Luke and Lando sought many years ago. Rey feels a mysterious connection to the dagger but can't work out why. The dagger is covered with mysterious Sith symbols, which 3PO is unable to translate. Poe comes up with a plan to hack 3PO's programming and allow him to translate it, knowing of an old contact who may be able to help them out. Chewbacca takes the dagger, and our heroes attempt to find a way out of the caves. During their escape, the gang runs into a very aggressive giant sandworm and a fight ensues. Noticing the creature is injured, Rey reveals a new Force power she has learned, from the Jedi text possibly. She manages to heal the creature, allowing our heroes to escape. Upon leaving the caves, they see a Star Destroyer floating overhead. Kylo has found them. So let's stop there. What do we think?
I feel like the dagger and falling into the caves is awfully convenient.
Yeah, I would say so. Unless it's like the Force willing it. That's the only thing I can kind of...
That's what I was thinking as well. It's very convenient. But like, again, we haven't seen... it could be either way. How they present it on screen. That's kind of what it comes down to for me.
That, and I really hope Finn is not Lando's son. That would be terrible.
He isn't. Spoilers. He's not. Don't worry.
All right, good, because there's got to be more than one African American guy in the galaxy.
In the galaxy, yeah. Oh god, I like this. I think it sounds good so far. I like the whole bit with Lando, how he never left Pisana in case he ever saw his child again. And I think that sounds like a nice way of bringing a little bit of depth to a character who. And look, I love Lando, but let's be honest, he is kind of one note.
Right.
A little bit.
I agree.
He had a little bit in The Empire Strikes Back with the back and forth. And again, it ties into Finn's whole thing. And I definitely agree about the dagger being convenient. But for me, it all depends how it's on screen. If they just magically fall down a hole, it's a bit stupid. If it's all the Force's will, just find this now kind of shit, I think I'd be okay with that.
Right. I think that like, here's another character. Like, now we have to learn about this Ochi character. I'm just kind of setting up my kind of like post-spoiler discussion, if we have time, of like, here's yet another character, and in the first or early second act that we have to introduce and kind of explain, and I'm not sure how much, and then deal with this sandworm that I'm not sure how much of a valuable use of time it is. It's kind of my concern.
I agree on the sandworm, but with regards to Ochi, and you've got a point about introducing a lot of stuff, and there's a lot introduced in this first act for sure. But for me, his role is very incidental. He's kind of there to set up various things, if that makes sense. Right. So I don't know how important it is that the audience necessarily latch on and that you learn this, and this. Again, look, it all depends how it's handled as a film.
Right.
I think it sounds, I'm okay with it so far. The sandworm thing, I agree with. I think that sounds like a bit much. It reminds me a bit of the Rathtars. You know what I mean?
Yes.
A little
yes.
bit
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I get you on the Rathtars, but at the same time, like creatures and monster fights, it's part of Star Wars. Like we've had it throughout the entire saga. So I mean,
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, yeah. No, I don't think that they're necessarily wrong. I just feel like with all that we have to do in this movie, do we need a? I mean, the only purpose of this thing is to show that she can heal, right?
Well, yeah. That, and I mean,
maybe that could change in the reshoots, though.
That's true.
You never know. Maybe that stands out to them because they're still filming. Apparently, they're still going.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing would be is like, how long is this sequence going to take? Like, if we're in and out in like 5 or 10 minutes, okay. But if this thing drags out like the casino scene, like it could not play out well.
Casino scene. You're beating the dead, the bloodied corpse at this stage, my friend. Again.
Well, no. Well, here's the thing. Like, I
don't blame you, man.
I mean, I don't want to defend it. Like, honestly, like I've talked about it before. Like, I like the casino scene itself because I kind of feel like the original trilogy is kind of all about religion and mythos, kind of a thing. The second one is a lot of, or the prequels are a lot about political and government. And I feel like this one, I think they kind of introduced it a little bit in 7. They're really hitting it home in 8 is like how much bigger the galaxy really is. And like we've been caught up in this little civil war, but it may not be as big of a deal as we think it is. And like there's people that are playing both sides making money. And I think it's kind of a social commentary on what we really have going on in the world today, where we give money and guns to the rebels, and they fight for us, and then they end up becoming Al Qaeda, and then there are enemies, things. And like I don't want to start getting into it, but
right? Yeah, no. I think that's definitely
out of my Star Wars, man.
Well, I know. Yeah, but I mean, I feel like George Lucas is, I don't know. I think he's
heavily political.
Very much so, like in his filmmaking. So I think this is just kind of continuing on down that same road. But.
I agree.
Completely agree.
So, and then now we have this dagger, right? So this is another MacGuffin. Like that's 3 MacGuffins so far. 3 MacGuffins and 3 or 4 new characters. So I
agree. It's a lot. I agree. It's a lot.
Okay, so let me continue.
Well, go ahead. Isn't it? No, I was going to say, like, we hear of this guy, but isn't he dead?
He is.
Like, they find his remains.
He is. And he's not so, but they're still going to explain him, I feel like. You know what I mean? And it may just be like in a sentence or two, but he's going to be pivotal to Rey in some way. So we got to have I hope to get a little bit of explanation.
Mm-hmm.
So let me try to figure out where are we going? So the scene of, all right, so Kylo has found them. Believing he must have already located the Falcon, the crew aboard Ochi's ship and attempt to get it working. On the ship, they discover a droid, D.O. Rey senses Kylo nearby and goes to buy time for her friends. The scene of Rey jumping over Kylo's ship plays out and a duel begins. The Knights of Ren, who accompanied Kylo, head for Ochi's ship. Chewbacca attempts to delay the First Order and allows our heroes more time to escape, but is captured by the First Order, who take the dagger and place him aboard the transport. As the transport takes off, Rey uses the Force to attempt to pull it back to the ground, while Kylo uses the Force to attempt to push it away. Kylo gains the upper hand, and Rey grows enraged, shooting Force lightning from her hand, accidentally destroying the ship, killing Chewbacca. With Ochi's ship now working, Poe and Finn pick up a devastated Rey and leave Pisana, heading to Poe's contact. Poe leads the team to a remote wintry planet of Kijimi, with C-3PO having the dagger's inscription saved to his memory. Let's stop there for a second. So, real quick, spoilers for the spoilers, Chewbacca's not dead. But this is... So I have three kind of plot concerns about this objectively. And then I have lore concerns, which are different. But like my plot concerns are the amount of MacGuffins, the amount of new characters, and the amount of fake out deaths. And this is the first one. That's all I have.
Isn't this the only?
No, because like no, and I'll show them as we go through. But like I think 3PO has a kind of a fake out death, and Kylo might have a fake out death.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I like the sounds of most of this. I mean, look.
So me too.
Yeah. So hang on. So this droid Dio, that's the one that we've seen, the one little wheel droid, right? That's hanging out with BB-8.
That's the one they hoped the marketing would take off on, but it kind of hasn't.
Yeah.
No one's seen shit, man. Honest with you. I mean, I think he looks cool, but that is a thing I kind of have a complaint with, is that from having, put all of this together, he doesn't play any real role. He doesn't really need to be in the film. Correct. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like, why?
Well,
we know.
We know
BB-8's buddy.
Yep, he's
just like C-3PO and R2.
He's the T-shirt.
Man, you get them wind-up deals and then remote control deals.
Yep.
I saw. I was gonna say I saw the remote control thing today for like $150.
And I was actually.
It looks pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it's a cool looking droid. But I was listening to Making Star Wars talk about it, and they were talking about at Celebration when they brought him out on stage, and like there was no response. Like when they brought BB-8 out on stage, at SDCC, people went fucking nuts, and like. But
I remember that.
Yeah, but now they're like, who gives a shit? Like we want to know what happens to the characters you've already made us care about, which is kind of one of my complaints.
Have you guys seen that meme where R2's talking to the Death Star?
No.
It's like a comic, and R2's like, "Come on, baby, come on! Like, what can it hurt?" The Death Star's like, "Okay, as long as nobody knows." And and then like the next scene, like the next box is BB-8.
I know. I remember that. That hit the rounds 15, man. I remember. Yeah.
But I do like the idea of Rey kind of harnessing this like instinctively like force lightning thing, and then thinking. Yeah, and I like her, cool. And I like her being devastated that she thinks she killed Chewbacca. Like, I love that.
Yeah.
And that plays into the rest of the movie in a very big way, in this power and it all kind of, the whole thing that a complaint people have with this trilogy, and again, I can make, counters to it, but is that they don't feel very connected. And I see where they're coming from.
Yeah, I do too.
For me, this whole Force dyad / Rey's power / ultimately what is revealed about her later on, it ties it back to the previous two films in a very concrete way.
I agree.
It doesn't feel on to me.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
I agree.
Look, that's a subjective thing. That's entirely subjective. I've thought about this too much,
Yeah, no, but I agree with you. I agree with you there.
Yeah, but like to your point, Bobby, I like the fact that it's almost like instinct, like it's natural reaction. You know what I mean? And it's like her coming of age kind of a thing. So I like the idea of continuing to see her getting stronger and stronger throughout like each film.
Yeah.
And the whole thing about like the Chewbacca death, like to me, I think that's like, if she feels like she caused his death, that's one more nudge for her to go to the dark side.
Right. All right, let's continue. Yeah. Poe's contact is Zori Bliss, a bounty hunter and an old love interest from before his days with the Resistance. She leads our heroes to a small alien named Babu Frick. Frick informs our heroes he can perform the procedure, but doing so will erase 3PO's memory. Still reeling from the loss of Chewbacca, our heroes want to find another way. But in an act of bravery, C-3PO insists. In what's described as a very emotional scene, 3PO says he would do anything for his friends, and the procedure begins. Frick does this procedure, with C-3PO's eyes glowing red, and the inscription points to the location of Palpatine's own Wayfinder device located on the forest moon of Endor. With the procedure complete, C-3PO is rebooted with a blank memory. However, other sources say his mind may be backed up somehow, and I heard it's in R2.
I heard that too.
Okay. While 3PO is being modified, Kylo, aboard his Star Destroyer, initiates another Force link with Rey. Kylo taunts her, revealing that Ochi used the dagger to murder her parents, who attempt to hide her from Ochi and maintaining that they were nobodies. A still shaken Rey grows angry, lashes out, and attempts to attack Kylo. This leads to a duel between the two through the Force, with it lasting long enough for Kylo to learn of their location. He ends the bond. All right, let's stop there. So here's another character, Babu Frick, that we have to introduce and tie in, and then we have another, quote unquote death, which is not like a literal death, but having your mind wiped is pretty much your death, because we kind of are only the sum of our memories in many ways.
Yeah, but I mean, like these again, like these characters. I mean, it may be something as simple as I forget the guy's name, but the guy in the beginning of episode 7 that Poe's talking to, and then Kylo has, she'll always be a princess to me. I cannot.
Yeah.
Remember, I can't do.
I think that's exactly
Santeca.
what it is.
Lord Santeca.
Yeah, but so some of these interactions could be something as small as that. You know what I mean? Or even the guy that's running the junker shed. Full quarter portions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like some of the stuff like
very much what it is from what I've read.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. But like, why not let R2 do it? Like give R2 a fucking job in one of these goddamn movies.
I completely agree on the R2 thing. I like the idea of Babu Frick and all that, but R2, it is kind of one of the big wasted things of this trilogy,
I don't know. But yeah, and then fighting through the Force, that sounds fucking cool to me. That I'm signed on for.
Yeah, so and one of the things I was reading, like it alluded to this fighting on the Force was the scene that we see when they're, and I don't know if it's true or not, but when they're fighting on the planet and it's like the water is splashing up on the sides of them, it looks like they're fighting on remnants of the Death Star. So I don't know if that's the same fight scene, but I'm with you. Again, this is more evolution of the Force, so I like the idea of being able to kind of fight in this other.
Me too.
World, other.
All right, so let me continue. The Sith fleet of Star Destroyers arrive overhead, and Kylo arrives on the surface. Zori initially considers turning our heroes over, but helps them escape using some sort of passage device, which broadcasts a friendly signal to First Order ships, allowing them to pass uninterrupted. With Ochi's ship presumably still troublesome to fly, they decide to use the passage device to sneak aboard a Star Destroyer and reclaim the Millennium Falcon. Once aboard, the droids hack into the First Order network, find the Falcon's location, but discover that Chewbacca is in fact alive and being held prisoner. He was on a different transport ship than the one that Rey destroyed. Our heroes hatch a plan to save Chewie, reclaim the Falcon, but Rey splinters off, feeling a mysterious calling through the Force. The Chewbacca rescue fails, and Poe, Finn, 3PO, and Dio are captured. Rey's calling leads her to Kylo's living quarters, where she finds the dagger. Back on Kijimi's surface, General Pryde and Hux are rounding up children and taking them to the First Order custody per Sidious's orders. Kylo grows frustrated at not being able to find Rey and initiates another Force link. He discovers she is on the Star Destroyer, and a duel breaks out through the Force. Kylo taunts Rey, revealing that while her parents were nobodies, her grandfather wasn't. He was Darth Sidious. He tells Rey he tells Rey that he and her are meant to be with the dark, and that is all part of Sidious's plan. The duel ends, and Kylo makes his way back to the Star Destroyer. Rey grabs the dagger along with Chewie's belongings and runs. She runs into 3PO, giving him Chewie's gear along with her staff and the Sith dagger, and tells him to run. She plans to stall Kylo to buy them time. Just when it appears all hope is lost, General Hux appears and allows our heroes to escape, directing them to the Falcon. It is here that they realize Hux is the mole within the First Order. Our heroes reunite and escape aboard the Falcon. Kylo recognizes Hux's true motivations and kills him for treason, making General Pryde sole commander of the First Order military. Sidious contacts Pryde, wishing to test his loyalty, and orders him to use the fleet's Death Star tech to destroy the surface of Kijimi. Pryde carries this out. Our heroes then travel to Endor. There's a lot there. So let's talk about there's a few things. So let's talk about her being Sidious's granddaughter. How do we feel about that?
I think it's a little convenient, and now it's like, and now I'm not as deep as in the comics and books, but have we ever heard reference to him having kids anywhere else?
Not that I know of. Andy?
He had concubines and pigeons, which I thought was stupid. I thought it was completely out of character for Palpatine. He never struck me as someone who'd ever remotely think of physical pleasure. He's too far gone.
Right.
He's poor. I don't like the idea of her being his granddaughter necessarily. Her being linked to him in some way, I totally buy. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about it, man. I feel like, just to take it out of universe for a second and channel my inner Adam, I do feel like they didn't have a concrete plan for her They kept trying to keep it open so they could make a decision as it played out. But by the time it got to decision-making time, they had backed themselves into so many corners that they couldn't figure out a fucking way to connect her.
Yeah, like,
really? You don't think it might have been planned?
What'd you say?
Palpatine link? You don't think the Palpatine link might have been planned from the beginning?
I don't think so.
You see, I think it could have. You know, I know there's
it could
a lot of...
It could have, but I don't think it was.
It was probably on the board. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
She's Han, she's Luke, she's, you know, who's ever.
Right.
She's Obi-Wan's granddaughter. You know, there could have been any number of things, but, like, I don't know, man. It almost feels too convenient. Like, I've wrestled with this, and Bobby, and like, I know I've talked to you about it too. Like, I don't know if I'd rather have her be a clone of his, of some sort. You know what I mean? And like, that almost makes more sense, like with the scene in the cave in 8 where she's snapping her fingers. Right. There's like thousands of her. You know what I mean? Like,
that'd be other things. If she was a clone, I'd kind of roll my eyes when I see that. You know,
I'm with you, Andy. I'm with you, Andy. I do agree with Tyler that it makes the cave scene make sense, but I do think if they make her a clone of somebody, it takes something away from her.
Yeah, I totally agree.
But I'm also not crazy about her being a Palpatine. You know, I'm torn. I'm Padme right now in Episode 3. Like,
I think if I had the choice, like if it came down to it, they're like, look, she can't be Luke and Leia. She can't be Luke's. They should be able to recognize their own daughter. You know what I mean? Like, could she have been Obi-Wan's granddaughter? I would have bought that. Could she have been? But like, if it comes down to either the granddaughter or a clone, because I don't see Palpatine having a family. We haven't heard anything about it. Like, I like the idea of the clone more.
Right.
And like, so we've had clones literally, you know, all the way through this entire thing. So I think it leads to that. Like, I think Palpatine's always had some sort of cloning going on. It does make sense that he's got a separate cloning operation out where he's currently at now that, you know, hardly anybody knows about. That makes sense. But at the same time, like, we've seen these things where even if somebody's a clone, they are still an individual. They can still kind of, like, even if you look back at the Clone Wars, like if you're looking at Cody, you're looking at Rex, you're looking at Echo, like they all have their own individual personalities and they all rise and fall in different ways. So I think that way it still makes sense. Like, you know, she's supposed to be one thing, but because of her behaviors, her actions, and her decisions, it's allowing her to be greater than what she was originally designed for.
I hear you. I don't. So let me just be clear. I don't hate the idea of her being a clone, but I don't like it. And I don't like her being Palpatine's granddaughter either. I think I like her being a clone slightly less than her being Palpatine's granddaughter. Let me say this though too. Let me bring up this point. I don't know how I feel about Kylo worshiping Vader for the first 2 films and then all of a sudden just co-signing on to the guy that Vader killed. Like when he's like, you know, this is Sidious's plan. We gotta trust Sidious's plan. Like, what? Why are you? Why?
Well, here's the thing. He views. I mean, remember, he worships Vader, not Anakin. Well, that's what I think. I mean, he's looking at the helmet.
Right.
He's clearly modeling himself after Vader, and he clearly. I mean, look. I mean, I know there's the Force Awakens novel, which goes into, you know, what he thinks of him turning a little bit more. But I mean, my whole thing is that I always thought Kylo would have, you know. Vader would have thought Vader made the wrong decision in saving Luke and in destroying the Emperor. But also, you know, maybe there's an element in this film, if we know he's still conflicted, of Kylo just thinks he's too far gone. He knows he could never beat Palpatine. Right. So there's nothing he can do. Maybe it's that kind of. I mean, again, it's different when it's bullet points on.
Absolutely,
you know
absolutely, and we should say that. We should say that to all the listeners. We're talking about this. Like just taking on face value what we see here. There's going to be a ton more nuance and information in all the dialogue and everything and the expressions on the faces of the characters that we can't see here. We're just talking about what we see.
Yeah. Well, and like I still like the idea of although it is Vader, it is still Anakin. So like, and this goes back to the whole the Sith, the Jedi. We got to burn it all down,
which I love.
Maybe this is it. Yeah, so do I. And I think it's one of these things where he's like, okay, I'm going to finish what Anakin couldn't. So he is going to get close to the Emperor until that point where I think he's wise enough to know that the Emperor's not putting all of his cards on the table.
Right.
So he's going to kind of play along with it until he's got that opportunity, similar to Snoke, where he's like, okay.
He wants Rey to be with him. He clearly has, it's obvious from watching the other movies. He knows he couldn't possibly do Palpatine without her.
Yeah, well, and again, I think it's his vision for what he wants is aligning with what Palpatine wants to a point. And I think he's going to play along until that point.
Maybe.
One more thing, though, before I forget to say it to you, because I know, Tyler, you asked me a minute ago, or you asked a minute ago, is there anything about Palpatine, ever having had a family or been in love or anything like that? There is, and it was co-signed by George Lucas. This just occurred to me. I forgot about this. So, do you guys remember the Star Wars live-action TV show that was supposed to happen during the 2000s?
Underworld, right?
Underworld, yes, that's the one. And it never happened. And the whole thing was written.
Correct. 50 episodes.
It evolved. Yep, 50. I think it was more. They had the whole show was written.
Right.
But 2016. Now, look, we don't know entirely how real this is, but some information came to light that it would have featured some information on the Emperor. I have a quote here if you want me to read it.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah. So this came from one of the writers, I think, who worked on it. And I mean, I don't know how, as an individual, what he's like. I don't know how true this is, but I don't think he'd have a reason to lie. And he said, when I was working at Lucas, I was allowed to go up to the ranch and read the scripts for the cancelled live-action TV show. It was the most mind-blowing thing I've ever had. I cared about the Emperor. They made the Emperor a sympathetic figure who was wronged by this fucking heartless woman. She's this hardcore gangster, and she totally destroyed him as a person. I almost cried while reading this. This is the Emperor, the lightning out of the fingers Emperor. That's something magical. The writers who worked on that, guys from The Shield and 24, these were excellent writers. That's all. And what I'm thinking is, if Lucas co-signed the idea, and I'm not going to say it, I know obviously they're not going to incorporate Underworld into this movie,
right?
But if Lucas co-signed on the idea of the Emperor once having been in love and then having gone down a dark path, what if he was married? What if he had a wife before he was Darth Sidious and he presumed her dead or destroyed or whatever, and unbeknownst to him, his lineage carried on. He had a kid he didn't know about, and this is how Rey exists. I could believe that a lot more than him just having had a wife at some point. You know what I mean? As Palpatine. And
I'm not crazy about him like even being committed. Do you know what I mean? Like if in my head, the Emperor, I agree with you, Andy, that I don't imagine him taking physical pleasure into account at all. But
yeah, I agree.
But if he does, I just want him slinging dick everywhere. Like I just, I just want him like he's the Emperor. Like, you know what I mean? Like he's the head guy. Like he would get anything he wanted. Like, what's your sign? Like I want all of it. But
here's the thing with that whole with him having the granddaughter and all that. Oh God, I've completely lost my train of thought. Okay, sorry. Carry on. What you were going to say?
While you're thinking, let me throw.
Bring me the next handmaiden.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Well, so and
make sure you arch your back. I hate when you push it up like that. Keep it down.
Wow.
You know how they always they always look ready till it's time for action.
Well, and part of me, and reading through some spoilers, and we heard the rumors that Hayden was on set, right? So, I'm hoping there's going to be some dialogue between Kylo and Anakin.
Oh yeah, I would love that.
Yeah, I would love that.
Kind of like advising him with the Emperor, and then the other thing is so the Salt Lake City Comic-Con. Mm-hmm. They were both supposed to be there.
Correct.
And
Correct. And Lucasfilm shut it. Lucasfilm shut it down.
The convention got a cease and desist saying you will not do this.
Correct.
Or we're going to sue you.
Correct.
Right. So, and I know people, they paid the extra money for the meet and greet. They did all kinds of stuff. So to me, why would they do that unless he's not in the movie?
Correct. I agree. Let me say this.
Whatever capacity he's in, it's highly guarded because there's nothing on it.
Nothing. Let me say this also. I'm super happy that she just gives 3PO Chewie shit and says run. That he's not like Rambo, C-3P Rambo, in just gunning down First Order troopers in a Star Destroyer. Like, that makes me incredibly happy.
I'm super disappointed that that's not going to happen. I am. And here's the thing, right? With 3PO, I love 3PO. I preferred 3PO to R2, and I know I'm in the minority there.
Yeah, you're on your own there.
I know, but I thought he was funny and sarcastic, and he says what a lot of cynical people think. I always liked 3PO. And I thought the idea of him being modified in some way to whether he, as we know, he loses his memories, or if something happens that, he's a new droid, and he's like, I'm not taking this shit anymore. Right. And there's just a scene where he goes nuts. I thought that sounded funny. I didn't think it sounded... Here's the thing. I don't think it sounds funny in an un-Star Wars, like, laughing at it way. Like, I'd be laughing with it. I think that sounds quite funny. So I am disappointed, especially because they seem to be leaning on that 3PO with the bowcaster and the red eyes thing a lot of marketing.
Yeah.
And I thought, like, it's just, apparently she just passes it to him and says, leg it. Hurry the fuck up.
Well, he may get a shot off or something, but like, I just don't like, in my head. What concerns me of that is like him falling over and around himself, accidentally pulling the trigger, and like having 100% marksmanship, like very prequel-y. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, saving the day, or a trooper's about to
like Jar Jar flipping
shoot Rey, and
like Jar Jar flipping that battle droid, and the battle droid shooting every single battle droid like perfectly.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Or when he's when he's the battle droid in Attack of the Clones.
Yes.
When he's getting... I thought I didn't hate that.
I don't hate that either. I don't hate that either. It's a nightmare.
It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. Right, so there's the third part of this that we have to talk about, and that is Kylo being the mole. I mean, Hux being the mole.
Hux.
I actually like that.
I like it too.
Yeah. Saw that coming a million miles away. But here's a thought that I had, and just before I forget what I said, this occurred to me, like the middle of the night last night. I couldn't fucking sleep, and I was thinking about this. Because we know that Hux is, he's a bit incompetent. He's not the best at his job. He throws tantrums, and he's a bit of a sissy. Could it have been that he was some sort of mole the whole time? Maybe. I think that is a stretch. I mean, there's nothing in the script or in the leaks that suggests that, but could that be a thing? In The Last Jedi, why he's so incompetent because he's trying to slow them down.
Yeah, so that's the thing, is that like it fixes the Last Jedi element of it, but it's hard to buy with Force Awakens. Like he had to let all those systems be destroyed as a mole. It seems like you would you couldn't.
Yeah, that's.
It's like the undercover cop that has to shoot somebody. You know what I mean? Like, you have to draw the line somewhere.
Yeah, I think that's a little tough. Like, I see what you're saying about fixing 8. I think this is more of his response to Kylo, like after being choked out and slammed up against the wall, and I'm not gonna follow this madman anymore. Like, and also I think his.
I agree, and I think also the fact that they dwindled the fucking resistance down to 1 Millennium Falcon worth of people, and then the resistance looks like it has gotten stronger only because they were fucking around with wayfinders instead of kind of finishing the job.
Yep. Well, and kind of going back to Hux's character, I think it's his own vanity and his own ego where he's like, I should have been the one in charge. So yeah. It could be he's selling Kylo out because he thinks it's going to end up serving him in the end, where he's going to be able to take control if they take Kylo out, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
From having done the research, I'm 99% sure that is the case. That it's what's happened in the last year or so since Last Jedi. That he's like, I'm not taking this. That was just a theory of mine. I don't think that's the case at all.
Right.
People hate General Hux. That's another point. I like him, especially in Last Jedi. I didn't like him in Force Awakens at all. I thought he was just run-of-the-mill, cookie-cutter, another Imperial type officer. I thought he was great in Last Jedi.
The only part of him I don't like in Last Jedi is the fucking phone prank thing. It's the one thing that I just can't digest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to remember where I left off here. 3PO is being modified. Kylo aboard his starship. Where was I at?
3PO running off with the ship. That was it when Rey passes him the bandolier and the bowcaster.
Tells him to run, and
Yeah. Okay.
They have the conversation with Hux. Hux directs them to the Falcon.
Yeah, and then Kylo kills Hux. I'm okay with that.
Yep. Yep.
All right. So, according to Making Star Wars Investment Bulletin, Ewoks will be seen in the sequence when they go to Endor briefly as onlookers. I'm 100% okay with that. Are we all good with that?
Yep. I'm good with that.
I think you might have skipped a part there.
Which part?
I don't mean to be that guy, but it's just because I did the research. After Kylo kills Hux, he makes General Pride,
the sole commander of the First
Order. He makes
Order.
him head of the army, and then Palpatine contacts him to test his loyalty and orders him to destroy the surface of Kijimi, or whatever the planet's called.
Correct.
Which he does.
Yeah, and I was going to say we've kind of seen that in the imagery so far. Yeah, with the lasers hitting the planet surface.
I don't know how I feel about another super weapon, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but at least it's like a fleet. It's not like a single weapon. Like it,
it makes a bit more tactical sense.
Correct.
Well, I hopefully they figured it out after 2 Death Stars and Starkiller base, right?
Right. So, according to Making Star Wars Investment Bulletin, Ewoks will be seen in the sequence briefly as onlookers, but here they meet Jannah, who was kidnapped by the First Order but escaped as a child and has been living on Endor ever since. Here it is revealed that Jannah is Lando's long-lost daughter. She provides Rey with transportation to the Death Star while the others work on fixing the Falcon. Rey makes her way through the wreckage to the throne room where she finds a chamber with Palpatine's Wayfinder device. Upon touching it, Rey is shown a future vision of herself, robed and wielding a double-bladed lightsaber, having turned to the dark side. Shocked, she is attacked by a newly arriving Kylo, who uses her shock as the chance he needs to destroy the Wayfinder. Now the Resistance have no way to make it to the unknown regions, with the only way to get there through Kylo and his Wayfinder. A battle ensues, eventually leading the two to the wreckage above the sea. Back on the Resistance Forest base, Leia is dying. She is not wounded or sick, simply her time, much like Yoda, with her role in the story ending. Luke appears to offer a final goodbye and passes one last lesson on to Leia, which we don't know. I guess it's a Force Ghost thing. Back on Endor, both Rey and Kylo feel Leia's passing. Rey uses the opportunity to stab a shocked Kylo through the chest. Here the sources diverge somewhat. According to Jedi Paxis, Rey gives into her anger, leaving Kylo for dead, while Bespin Bulletin reports that she says she will never give in to darkness and be like him, healing him through the Force. Both sources corroborate the scenes ends with Rey stealing his ship and leaving without the other heroes, while an injured Kylo is left defeated on the Death Star wreckage. Not knowing where Rey has gone, the others, along with Jannah, leave for the Resistance base. While lying wounded in the Death Star wreckage, Kylo reportedly sees a vision of his father. Whether this is a Force ghost or an injury-induced hallucination is unknown. He apparently tells Kylo it's never too late to return to the light and make the right choice. He leaves as Ben Solo, leaving the identity of Kylo behind. Again, Jedi Paxis stressed the specific beats of this sequence are unknown to him, so it may be as simple as it sounds. He also loses his lightsaber. It is either destroyed by Rey or he abandons it along with the moniker of Kylo Ren. All right, so let's stop there. Let me tell you what I would have preferred. I would have preferred some vision of Kylo, like a flashback of him as a child and Han saying something to him that just clicked. Like Han gave some piece of advice, some like offhanded, like seat of his pants, simple tricks and nonsense type of advice. And Kylo happened to remember it, and then that inspired him to change, instead of some sort of vision or hallucination of like a modern Solo saying like, come back, come back. That's me.
Anybody? I like that.
But yeah, this is
like, so I like the idea of the fight. I like the idea of Rey getting the upper hand. Yes. I even like the idea of her, and I kind of like the idea of her like walking away halfway and then like realizing like I can't give in to the darkness. Going back, quote, healing him enough that he won't die right away.
Right.
The thing that bothers me is her leaving everybody. Like, that doesn't seem like her. Like, she's like, I'm out, and she leaves her entire crew.
Well, I guess
the reason she's supposed to do that is because she gave into darkness again and saw a vision of herself in the future, and up till right there, she believed she killed Chewie. And I think, again, as the next bit of the movie goes, she's starting to believe she's doing more harm than good. I think that seems to be the character's arc in this film, up to this point, anyway.
Right.
I thought we found out on the ship that Chewie was still alive.
Yes.
So we as the audience found out.
No, I think she knows.
But
no, I think she knows as well. But it's like, it's still like she just
had her.
Yeah, she just went through that emotional thing of thinking she had killed a friend.
Because she gave into the dark side and then saw a vision of herself. And by the way, that scene where we see her with the lightsaber and she sees the vision of herself, the possible future, the details are sparse, but apparently Ian McDiarmid was on set for that scene. So it sounds like she sees herself serving Palpatine. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that adds up, it gives a little bit more context to why she would get so frightened and run off. You know what I mean? I think the Jana thing sounds awfully convenient.
Yeah, but you know what? But that's so. The thing with Jana and me is that like that feels like Star Wars convenience that's supposed to be convenient.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm good with that. I'm 100% good with that. I'd even be okay if Finn was related to it too, just because I like the idea of legacy in Star Wars. But I like it. I'm good. I'm good with that. I'm super good with them feeling the loss of Leia and it taking Kylo longer to kind of snap back than Rey, and Rey uses that to win. I like that also.
Yeah, and that's a very dark-sidey thing to do as well, especially if it's in her anger for this scene.
Yes, I agree.
I was gonna say I like the idea of Rey destroying Kylo's lightsaber, but at the same time, like I kind of like the idea of him leaving the lightsaber and the helmet behind.
Yeah.
Especially him walking away from the helmet. You can see that as a shot already. That's a cinematographer's dream.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
The Death Star with waves around, and that's some poster shit.
Yeah, for sure.
Or even it would probably piss some people off, but if he just looked at the lightsaber and threw it, he doesn't necessarily need to be over the shoulder, but like kind of like tosses it away, kind of a thing too.
Yeah. Rey arrives on Ahch-To to collect her thoughts. She was scared of the anger she felt and fears the path she's going down. Seeing similarities between this and Luke's instinctual reaction to a sleeping Kylo's darkness in The Last Jedi, she destroys her ship, throwing Anakin's lightsaber towards it, and apparently swears off the Jedi, believing she may be doing more harm than good. Luke appears to Rey, giving her the courage to resolve to finish what he started and defeat the Emperor for good. He apparently appears with Leia's lightsaber, giving it to Rey. Again, Jedi Pax stresses he does not know how Luke came into possession of it. Perhaps it was already on the island, or perhaps it was when he went to say goodbye to her. You know what I mean? Her courage renewed. Rey recovers Anakin's lightsaber and manages to use Luke's Red 5 X-Wing to leave the planet. This is indisputably cool, says Andy.
I mean, that is kind of cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Out of the ocean. That's pretty cool.
Either Rey transmits the location of the Sith fleet to the Resistance, having presumably seen its location before its destruction, or Ben sends the coordinates to the Resistance. The final act goes down something like the Resistance fleet arrives and engages the Sith fleet, while Rey arrives on Exegol to face Sidious. Palpatine says he was shaken by the strength of the bond between Luke and Vader through the familial tie. He hopes to have that with Rey, allowing them to become as strong as the Skywalkers. Her life up to this point has basically been a Sith conspiracy. Ben Solo arrives to face the Emperor alongside Rey. According to Making Star Wars and Bespin Bulletin, Palpatine's plan all along was to get Rey and Kylo together and use the Force to drain them and rejuvenate himself, presumably killing them. When he attempted this, something described as a crazy over-the-top Force lightning thing happens, which destroys the Resistance ship. Somehow, Rey and Kylo managed to stop this, with Palpatine now looking more like his younger self. Think Revenge of the Sith, and the two engage him together. According to Bespin Bulletin, the Knights of Ren side with Palpatine, engaging in the fight against Rey and Ben. Rey faces Palpatine while Ben battles the Knights of Ren. They believe Palpatine may use lightsaber during the fight. Palpatine may possess either Kylo or a Knight of Ren at some point while all this goes on. That's crazy. While all this goes on, the Resistance fleet with Poe and his orange X-wing and Lando flying the Falcon alongside Chewie attacks the Sith fleet led by General Pride. Zori Bliss may also be on the Resistance side during this battle. They are attempting to destroy the flagship, serving communications between the Sith fleet and making navigation out of the unknown regions impossible. Making Star Wars says that Finn and Jannah go on a suicide mission with a group of Resistance soldiers to destroy the reactor core of General Pride's flagship. They destroy the reactor, and the ship begins to go down and explode. This is apparently a very complex zero-gravity sequence. It looks like their death is certain until the Millennium Falcon swoops in and saves them, swooping inside the Star Destroyer and out before it explodes. According to Making Star Wars, Poe Dameron may die during this sequence, but the details of this are unknown. Meanwhile, Sidious is engaged in a fierce battle with Kylo and Rey. He wounds Kylo, who lies dying. The spirit of Luke and Leia appear, helping Rey defeat the Emperor once and for all. The details on exactly how this transpires are unknown. Kylo's fate is somewhat vague. Fate, I think, is somewhat vague. According to Jedi Paxis, he is healed by Rey, while other sources, such as Making Star Wars, says that he dies. Some sources say he may be possessed by Palpatine and begs Rey to kill him, destroying Sidious for good. The Sith fleet now destroyed. The Resistance jump from the unknown regions, presumably picking up Rey and possibly Ben along the way. The film ends with Rey, possibly Kylo, on Tatooine at the deserted Lars homestead. Jedi Paxis stresses he does not know why she is there, and presumably that will be explained in the film. Rey has taken apart Anakin and Leia's lightsabers, possibly damaged in the fight with Palpatine, and uses them to construct a new one with a goldish blade. A civilian approaches her, saying they haven't seen anybody around this place in a very long time, and asks who Rey is. She replies with Rey Skywalker. She buries the remains of the lightsabers, being the homestead. The film ends with Rey and possibly the other heroes looking out to the twin suns, the saga ending much as it began in 77. So, we got 20 minutes to talk about it. What do we think?
I think it sounds good. I think it sounds pretty great. The details are vague. The whole third act is the most hard to get the details of.
Correct.
I think it sounds pretty great. My biggest question mark is the Skywalker thing.
Yeah.
To be honest.
So my biggest problem with it in reading this is that Force Ghost Luke and Leia help and defeat Palpatine. But I just recently heard that the majority of the reshoots are dealing with not making it that.
Oh.
So I would love that, because like if it's the Force Ghosts that win, why do we give a shit about Rey and Kylo anyway? Do you know what I mean?
But for me, if Force Ghosts were there, it would legitimize it somehow. Like, it's not just her who beats him. You know what I mean?
I don't know.
It would tie it back to the legacy of.
I think it depends on how it's done. Like, if it's like words of encouragement, or like kind of like an overlay of Luke and Leia saying something like throughout the fight, like there's one line from each of them, like I'm okay with that. Like,
right. No, I'm good with that. I'm good with that too.
What I don't want it to be is like the Force Ghosts, like at the end of Jedi, and all of a sudden they're pulling out their lightsabers. And, yeah, and they're fighting him on. Like, I think that's jumping the shark.
Yeah, I agree.
But I kind of heard the same thing, that there's, when I was reading online, that there is some reshoots kind of around the same thing with that, and then adding special effects to like the Knights of Ren's weapons to give it like a lightsaber effect on the edges and stuff. Which I don't know how I feel. I don't know how I feel about that either.
It's fine.
But I kind of like the idea, and we've heard the Plagueis thing jumping from body to body. Like, I kind of like the one final act of goodness that Kylo does, if he is in fact inside of Kylo, and Kylo's like, "Kill me now," kind of a thing to Rey.
I prefer
that. Sounds good to me. I think that sounds good.
That sounds good to me too. But I heard, like, before like the leaks started getting heavy, one of the first leaks I heard was that Palpatine possesses Kylo and Kylo kills himself. And that sounds much better to me.
Yeah, I like that as well. Yeah, I like that too.
I hope,
or even if he attempts it, right, and like Palpatine like somehow foils it off at the last second, so he's like injured, but he's not like dead, right? And Rey's got to finish the job.
Yeah, I think that could be very emotional as well if Rey is the one who has to do it, knowing that he's turned, and because Rey and Kylo, for me, well, we know Rey is, but they're kind of the two main characters of this trilogy.
Oh, definitely.
Because Kylo is the mirror of Rey in so many ways, and this whole Force Dead thing only further, concretes that.
Yeah.
I love the oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I love the way they're leaning into Finn's past as a stormtrooper a little bit in this movie, which I thought was one of the big missteps of The Last Jedi, that they didn't go into that, and that himself and Janna have this kind of kinship, and that they go on this essentially suicide mission. Like, maybe they're just like, we're just troopers at the end of the day. Like, I love that they're going to lean into that. So
yeah, I like that.
You know what I mean? Especially for the last actor. I think that sounds great.
I like that too. I don't quite understand why, especially if Kylo dies and Poe dies, why she's out there burying a lightsaber. It's like, of all the things to mourn, you know what I mean? I understand it's symbolic and all that shit, but it's like, I don't know if that will be the emotional satisfaction that I need, like burying the lightsaber.
Yeah. I mean, it's some strong imagery. Like, I can picture it in my head.
Yeah. But it's like, man, I don't know, bury Kylo. If Kylo dies, you know what I mean? Like,
man, Kylo's going to get burned. He's going to get a Jedi funeral if he dies.
Well, right. Yeah, I'm good with that too.
But if the ship's exploding, if the ship's going down,
what's she going to bury? Like a charred wing?
Here's my other question.
Yeah, the end of one of the guns on the edge, just all charred. And just put it under the ground.
Is this third act? Here's my question to you guys. This is another thing I'm wrestling with, alongside with all of these characters. And the one character that's not really mentioned in this kind of sequel thing is there's a whole. In this leak thing, there's a whole slug guy that's friends with Chewbacca that they explain too.
Yeah, he's not mentioned at all.
Yeah,
he's on the poster. We've seen him,
and his
on
name
the
is
artwork,
his name
right?
is like Krug or Kurd or something like that. But he So there's all these new characters. There's all these fake deaths. There's all of these. Another fake death might even be the suspected suicide mission of Finn and Janna. And then there's all these MacGuffins. Aside from all that, the third act, the final fight, all of that, is it too Return of the Jedi?
I don't think it is.
All right, talk about it.
I don't think it is because, look, it's like this. There's ways they can go about it, right? If it's him sitting on a chair like, you must join me and your fleet is doomed, and that's going to be to Return of the Jedi. But if it's her coming to face Palpatine, and it's her finally kind of facing the family she's been looking for this whole trilogy, and Kylo comes in and there's a big battle, and if it all depends on how they pull it off. If they slavishly try and go for bits like Return of the Jedi, like they did it with the Trench Run and Force Awakens, then it's going to be to Return of the Jedi. Right. But if they don't, to me, it just makes logical sense. I don't see how else you would end it. I think it could go either way.
Well, to me, Bobby, when you're reading it, it sounds like the end of Jedi in the throne room scene where they fight off.
Right.
Whatever guards they are, and
you're talking about the Last Jedi with Praetorian guards.
Yeah, the Praetorian guards and Snoke. That's what it sounds like to me. And I didn't like that. I liked the dialogue. I didn't like the choreography. I didn't like the fight scene. So hopefully that gets better.
Really? But I love that fight scene, man.
I thought that fight was terrific. A lot of people don't like it though.
I don't like it. It just feels, I don't know, a little too Bruce Lee, 1970s. Everyone's gonna take time, one-on-one. Oh no, you go, I'll go next, kind of a thing. Instead of everybody bull rushing them at the same time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I
don't have that. I adore that scene. But go ahead, it's fine.
Yeah. Well, no, to me, that's what it feels like more than the end of Jedi. And the other thing that concerns me is this whole draining your life to restore my kind of thing, and that's a little vampire-ish to me.
But I'm okay with that too. That sounds very dark sidey, Sithy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you, but I'm trying to visualize what does it look like?
Right.
And that's kind of what concerns me.
Yeah.
We know it's apparently crazy over the top and destroys a Star Destroyer sized ship, or a big Resistance capital ship. But it all depends how it looks on screen. I think it sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I do feel like it's I do feel like just, and I'm talking about the third act specifically. I do feel like it does. I hear you with the Kylo versus the Praetorian Guard and Rey versus Palpatine. It's almost like what if it went down that way in Snoke's throne room. But there is something very Return of the Jedi to me about it, where the fleet is going to be kind of above them fighting. They're down in the kind of throne room. It looks like the throne room is going to be largely kind of stylized after Ralph McQuarrie's throne room drawings. And, Palpatine is trying to get her to join him, and she doesn't. And, and like the only difference is that it's Palpatine and the Knights versus Kylo and Rey. And there's two other things that I want to talk about. One is we don't really see how the mask being repaired fits in. And also there's not a whole lot. I'm worried about how the Knights of Ren are used in this thing. Because like I have a feeling that I'm going to walk away and being like, look, I could use less Boba Ficku or whatever the fuck his name is, less Crud and Kurg or whatever his name is, less Dio, less Zori, less Janna, and could have just had more Knights of Ren.
But you see, all those kind of side characters and alien characters and, your wacky little droid makers and all that stuff, like, that is the world of Star Wars. You know what I mean? I feel like that has to be.
I hear you, and I don't necessarily disagree, but I do feel like like everybody's been wanting the Knights of Ren since 7. And if they don't have their moment, it's just going to feel like another fucking Darth Maul or another Boba Fett. You know what I mean?
Do you really hear that many people talking about Knights of Ren? I think I did, but now I don't. Like, and maybe Bobby, not. I'm just wondering, is this you and your appetite for squads,
probably
brotherhood?
Probably
is like, are you projecting that into this?
Probably
never even thought of that.
Probably because I like a crew, man. I like a fucking crew. And
yeah, like, and I know that about you, but like, to me, like, if they've been off and like they've been running errands for Kylo or trying to track down this or track down that, or if they've been, in contact with Palpatine doing these like kinds of things, like, to me, like, okay, like, they're around, we know of them. Like, it would be cool if they could tie it back into Luke's school and like if Kylo's known these guys since he was a kid, kind of a thing. But I don't think we're gonna get that.
See, that's a lot more I want, man.
Or are they force sensitive? That's the thing, we don't know.
Yeah, that's another question. Are they force sensitive? And also, like, that whole story of the school, I still don't feel like that's completely laid out for us yet.
But we know that's a part of the movie. From that, now it's not in the leaks, but from that, when Entertainment Weekly did like some of the first information we got on it, period, one of the pictures was Luke standing beside R2 looking at the burning building like we saw in Force Awakens and Last Jedi.
Right.
So I'm assuming it's going to be mentioned somehow.
Right.
I could see it in some sort of a flashback scene.
Yeah, me too. I think maybe, or perhaps the Knights of Ren, if they are force sensitive, or if they were students of Luke's, which seems the logical choice, because I was thinking about why don't they have lightsabers and yada yada. Maybe they're not fully trained. Maybe they weren't as advanced as Kylo was, and so they look to him for leadership.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that that's definitely plausible. But like, let me know. Let me know what's going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I will say one thing that I know I mentioned this in some of the notes I put at the bottom. And look, I have no idea if this is true. This is just what the leak said. Jedi Paxis, in his leaks, said that Lucasfilm are particularly aware of the hype for the Knights of Ren, and they want it to meet that. Now, look, they'll say that about everything.
Right.
That's just what I heard from his insiders. So, take from it what you will.
Yeah,
I can see some novel or some comic book series coming out.
Well,
like
comic book series
series already.
Yeah, that shit's coming. The comic book series is coming. But like, I just feel like I don't hate this. But it doesn't. It seems like it's going to be fine. But I do think there's some kind of weird choices made. And it seems to have an awful lot in it that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the kind of where it started. if that makes sense.
Do you think that's stuff that was originally going to be in the second part of this trilogy? Because we've heard that Rian Johnson had free reign and all that stuff.
Yeah, well, I think that they had a couple overarching ideas, right? Like I think Kylo redeeming himself was in there from the beginning.
Yeah. That's the thing Adam Driver's been talking about. You know, the way he's been saying that there's a piece of information he's known and had in his head the whole time. That would make sense.
Mm-hmm. But I don't think any of this stuff, like Wayfinders and Spider Monsters, and I don't think any of that was in the original idea.
Oh no! I mean that's very specific. Then.
Well, Wayfinders. I mean, like that's a big plot device of this movie.
Yeah. What about Palpatine? Like, how do we feel? I want to ask you this. How do you feel about how he's used, and how do you feel, do you feel it was planned? Because I think it very well might have, and I have reasons for that, but I'll let you go first.
I think Palpatine might have been in the plan from the beginning.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think,
Tyler?
Sorry, I was about to go Tyrese, man. It's too late here. It's nearly 11 o'clock here. I'm too fucking tired.
I don't know. Tyrese is kind of a black eye.
Tyrese is a cheek.
I definitely think he was on the board the entire time. I do like the idea of him being around the entire time throughout the entire saga. I mean, at this point, he's really. I mean, if you think about it, even though we didn't see him in 7 and 8, like if his actions have been around, I would like to see. And that was going to kind of lead me to the next couple of things. Is like, what do you guys want to see from this? But like, I would like to see at some point how he was involved with Snoke and getting the First Order up and running.
Yeah, me too.
Like. Even, and I don't know if it's a flashback scene or if I don't want him just like explaining it or Kylo explaining it, but like I'd like to somehow see what he was doing from afar to kind of manipulate the situation all the way through.
Well, Snoke specifically, the relationship between Snoke and Palpatine is now super interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think Snoke was a puppet. I don't think he was anything more than that.
Oh yeah, me too. But like, how did he find him? Where did he find him? How did Snoke get in the Jedi school? All that shit. Like, I want to know all that shit.
Have you guys seen the Photoshop where they take the kid's face, one of the younglings that Anakin slaughters, and they it's one of the transition things where it's like. Is nobody paying attention that Snoke was a youngling that Anakin slaughtered, and it's like it phases Snoke's face to the kid's face?
No, I like that though.
I doubt. It's funny, but like I don't think they would do that per se. But like that is something I want to see. Like I want to know how Snoke got involved in this picture, and I don't think we're ever gonna get it. Like.
I'll tell you how Snoke got involved. He was the stormtrooper in episode 4 who bumped his head off the door, and he got a big gash, and he got pissed off, and he was like, "I'm sick of being bossed around," and he went to train in the dark side, and he had that big gash. That's who he was.
I've seen that one too, but like,
yeah. And he went out and he got addicted to meth, and then the rest.
Yeah, when the Empire fell, he got a bit rough for a few years. That's how he lost it. Got all decrepit.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. So while I think this movie sounds good, I think it sounds like a pretty good movie. I don't know how satisfying it sounds to me. And it kind of I feel like that's kind of it has to be its main objective is to leave a satisfying ending to it all. And I'm not sure how I feel about it. That's not to say I won't love it when I see it, but I'm just that is one thing that's popping up in my head.
Well, I mean, closing out is hard, right? Like we saw that with Endgame, like
and Game of Thrones and fucking Sopranos and fucking everything.
Yeah, so I don't know if they could ever close this out, quote unquote, right, that would satisfy the masses. But like reading this and kind of reading the spoilers, like. I don't think this is going to give people the closure that they want, and I really hope it does. And some of these people that are like, I'm done with Star Wars, throwing their hands up in the air, especially after Episode 8, which I still don't think people get it, and I don't know how to.
No, I agree.
Articulate it better than they just don't get it, and it's not an intelligence thing. It's like I don't think they either they don't want to see the Force evolve, or they don't want to let go of what they thought.
It's like they have the wrong prescription glasses on. You know, it's like
kind of.
You know, that's how I feel about a lot of shit regarding episode 8. Is like a lot of people that hate it. It's like they're just. It's like somebody gave them. They're like, here. They like check their eyes and they're like, here, your 2010 vision will be fixed. But they actually had 1020 vision, and nobody gave them the right pair of glasses.
Yeah. I think a lot of the hate is groupthink. I think that's what a hell of a lot of it is. It's people in a lot of the crowd. Because I can tell you, like I saw episode 8 with, I don't know, 6 or 7 of my friends, and the general reaction, aside from being a bit mixed when we got out of it, but within a couple of days, everybody was very positive in it. And there were certain friends of mine who, like, there's a guy I know who's super critical and he loved it. But within about 4 months, literally every single one of them hated it. And they were going on about the same things. Oh, Rose and Snoke and all the same shit. And look, listen, to anyone listening, if you hate The Last Jedi and you genuinely dislike it, that's fine. But I think there's a lot of people who just kind of hate it because they get sucked into the mentality. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like when someone points something out to you and then you don't see it the same way again.
Well, I think it was such a turn and people weren't ready for it. And I think a lot of people carried in baggage to it, and it didn't meet what they thought their expectations of episode 8 should have been. So they drew frustration for it. Like, I remember walking out of the theater the first time I saw it, and I was like, what was that? Like,
me too. Exactly the same.
Like, I liked it. I didn't know why I liked it. I didn't know what I saw, and I didn't.
That's very similar to my experience.
And like, it took me a long time, and like, it was multiple viewings, and it was thinking through a lot of things, and like, it came to the point, like, it was Luke evolving and growing and becoming a man, and kind of seeing the follies of like the people in front of him. And it's kind of, it's one of those things, like when you're growing up and like you think of your parents or other adults in your life, and like you think that they can do no wrong, and like you put them up on these pedestals, and there comes a point where you look at them like a man and you see their faults, and they're not the person you thought you wanted them to be. Like, never meet your heroes kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. Right. And that was part of it. And I think a lot of them got a dose of that. I think they saw people for what they really were and what their shortcomings were. And even people as great as, Yoda, like, as good as they were, like, and that's the thing with the Force. And it's one thing I really like about Star Wars is, like, there is an overarching theme to it, but each Jedi kind of has their own interactions and their own experience with the Force, and it's kind of unique to them. And I do think there's some common threads in there, but like, I think at this point, it was The Last Jedi, right? So now we're only seeing it from one perspective. We're only seeing it from Luke's perspective, and a lot of people are like, well, I don't know why they would, like, he would just quit and walk away from it all and like kind of let it all burn. But like, and it was funny because I looked at it and I kind of addressed it to my own life. But like, I walked away from a job, from a company that I love, that I grew up in, and it was what I knew, and like, I didn't understand how much I tied of who I was to that job until I walked away from it. And then it's like, how much of who I thought I was actually tied up in the job, and it's not really who I thought I was. And it's forced me to grow and evolve and become a better person. And to me, it's the same thing. Like, he had to walk away from it to truly like understand what it is and be able to look at it outside of his own experience. Like, he had to step away from it to get the grand vision of what it was. Like, he can't see the forest through the trees kind of a thing. And I don't think a lot of people see that in it. I think there's a lot of beauty in that movie that's missed on people.
Right. Yeah, dude.
Ultimately, he dies the hero he was in the original trilogy. That's the thing. That's the main point of the movie. I think people miss that. He didn't die of failure and all this stuff. Like he became who he was supposed to be.
Dude,
and I think he could have done.
It was the most like badass thing that any Jedi has ever done.
Yeah,
I totally agree. I think people miss that 100%.
And it was
let me get this one point out. I think that he died the hero that he never was. Like, I think we view him as this. Yeah, like that's the thing. That's how I see it. Is that like, I don't think he died the hero that he was in Return of the Jedi. I don't think he really was a hero in Return of the Jedi. I think he died the hero he never became. Like, it was always supposed to be him to be the hero, but he just kept fucking up and kept fucking failing and kept fucking crying and bitching and moaning. And then he finally said, you know what? No, I'm standing up. I'm taking it to him. I'm going to win, and I'm going to do it in the most Jedi way. Not the way that the Jedi told me to do it, the way that I have discovered on my own that was intended for us.
But isn't that him becoming a hero?
Yeah, definitely. But I'm just saying that, like, I don't really see him as the superheroic type in 6. I see him as that in 8.
Well, okay, so I don't want to say it came easy to him, but like he had obviously tremendous success in 7, right? Or excuse me, in 4, and one of the things I think with Luke is like he fell into his own hype. Like I think he thought he was always greater than what he really was, and he got humbled in 5, right?
Right.
Came back in 6, and I think it was one of those things where he started to kind of believe into his own hype. And I think the mythos of Luke Skywalker, like he could never live up to what people's expectations were of him, kind of a thing.
Right.
And he had, and what?
That's very meta in a way as well, you know, for the audience.
Very much so. And to me, like it's a very, I don't know if Lucas has got like some Buddhist or leans Buddhist trends, but they're like, to me, like, especially like, 100.
Yeah, definitely.
So to me, like there's a lot of like Buddhist kind of teachings kind of inside of this thing, and even with Episode 8, it's the same thing. Like he hung it up because he thought he failed, and again, it goes back to the humility thing. Like he rises and he falls, he rises and he falls, and I think it's a great lesson for life. Like we all like. You rise to the task that's placed before you, and then once you've kind of overcome that task, you kind of become lax, you get a little comfortable in that space, and next thing you know, there's another challenge, and sometimes you're ready for it, and sometimes you're not. But I think him hanging it up and him coming back, like, there's some poetic like justice in that too. Like it's hard for me. It's hard for me to articulate to people, and it's like they miss it, and I don't know how to explain it to them. And like I remember that night we were sitting in Dust's house, Bobby, and it was you and me trying to explain it to Brink, and I can't remember who else was sitting there. Yeah. And it's like, and I know you felt the same way. Like I kind of felt like I was banging my head against the wall because I couldn't get them to kind of see past the limitations that they gave themselves. Yeah. And I think Luke saw that same thing too, and that whole scene with him and Yoda, and he's like, "Look, everything you think you know, and everything we thought we know that we pass along to you, it's wrong." Right.
That just gave me the chills, and like when you said like, he started kind of believing his own hype, like that in and of itself is a metaphor for the Jedi El Total. That they believed their own hype.
Very much so.
And it was only until he humbled himself, and it was only until he kind of hit rock bottom that he was able to see it clearly. And that shit, man, I feel like that movie has done more to grow Star Wars than anything since Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, I completely agree. But here's the thing, and I wanted to ask you this. Like, that comes back to the whole thing of legacy and stepping up and what's been handed down. Like, with this final film in mind, what do you feel this trilogy has to say? Do you know what I mean? Compared in the themes of the other two trilogies. So if the originals were about, a boy meeting his destiny and discovering a mythos and a legacy and overcoming evil, and the prequels are what not to do, how it all goes wrong. It's a tragedy. What do we think this trilogy has to say now that we know how it ends?
I think that Tyler actually kind of put me onto this from the Variety article. I think they might have said it there that it's almost like the younger generation being held responsible for the sins of their fathers, and like everybody in the sequel trilogy is kind of having to deal with the decisions made by the generation prior and having no real instruction manual, because everybody from the generation prior that should have been, kind of training the next generation to get into a place to kind of carry on in a productive way, almost ignored them in a sense of maintaining their own legacy and allowing for that ball to be dropped. And now you have them all dying off or, retiring into obscurity. And then here's this younger generation that had, supposedly everything laid out for them, and it went left, and they're trying to figure it out. I think it's about paying for the, paying for the sins of your forefathers, and simultaneously about, the gift and the curse of legacy.
That's why I love Kylo so much, man, because he surmises everything this trilogy thematically in some ways has to say, because essentially his lineage is heroes and villains and generations of fighting and wars. Like, his direct family, from his parents to his grandfather, have had more of an effect on the galaxy than anyone. Like, that's such a legacy. How would you not be fucked up?
Right.
You know what I mean? You would not be a great hero with this legacy. You'd be screwed up from all that shit.
It's too much pressure. It's too much pressure.
Because Luke never grew up with that. Leia never grew up with that.
Yeah.
Anakin didn't grow up with that. He didn't know what he would be.
It's true.
Kylo did.
I think it's one of those things too, where like he hears about the grandeur of Luke Skywalker, and he knows who his parents are and how great they are to all these other people, and these other people's perspectives of who Luke, Han, Leia, his grandfather was. Meanwhile, he's sitting there like front row, like he's in that pocket, and he's looking around. He's like, these people are not that good.
Yeah,
these guys have faults, and like he's really the only one who can see it.
It's like when
that thinks he's not good enough. That's what I don't think everybody wear the mask and hide himself.
I don't
trying to project, make up.
But it also reminds me of like when they interview Quincy Jones' daughter or something, and they talk about like what a god he is, and she's like, "You mean the guy that cheated on my mom and fucking was never around?" Yeah, I know the guy. Like,
yeah. Well, see, and dude, that's part of it. And like, I don't want to get like too personal like into this, but like Bobby, like you identify as like Han, right? Like that's who you were growing up.
Definitely.
Like I lean more Luke because to me, like I had a Vader type father, and like there was like even now, man, like there's still some resentment even now. Like he's still affecting my life from the other side of the country, and I'm trying to find ways to cut that off and not be slaving to those who came before me, right? Even though like he's manipulating situations, interfering with TFCon and a few other things, but that's another conversation. But like that's how like I see like when we look at this, I think people gravitated to Rey, but I think if they spend more time in Kylo's shoes, looking out like how he grew up, and if you just think of the expectations, like his mom and dad didn't have time for him. Dad was off doing whatever in the galaxy. Mom is running the galaxy, kind of a thing in the rebellion and everything else. So he gets pushed off. So he's almost like a latchkey kid.
Yeah.
And then it's like, hey, go hang out with your crazy uncle, who's this Jedi master who like you want to be like, you idolize, but even then, like this is the one guy that you felt had your back, and then you wake up and this guy's got a lightsaber over you and he's about to kill you too.
Yeah.
So when he says the light, the dark, the Jedi, the Sith, we need to burn it all down, I think he sees the error in everybody around him, and like what if none of these people existed? What would the galaxy really look like? Yeah,
I agree. And I also like I think that we all kind of carry baggage of legacy, no matter how big or small. I know that I carry legacy, in a number of ways in my life in terms of my family, but also like, when I was growing up, and you do stuff that you do when you get into high school and college. Like, I drew hard lines in the sand because I was like, there's no way I am even looking in the direction of this, because I know that I am prone to addictive behavior. So I'm not I'm not even going to write that word down on paper. You know what I mean? And then at the same time, what you were saying about, like that thing of your this person that you idolize, like, it's almost like that, never meet your heroes. You know what I mean? Because they disappoint you. And this kid, his mother was saving the world, but failing her son. And what do you do when you're constantly being introduced to people that are like, oh, your mother, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for your mother. Do you know how lucky you are? And it's like, I don't even know who the fuck that bitch is. Like, she's all fucking off all day long. I don't see her but once a week or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I think Kylo is one of the most fascinating Star Wars characters that we've ever seen.
I completely agree. And on that subject as well, because I know, Bobby, you were saying you identify more with Han, and like, for me, when I was a kid, it's changed. It was Luke, right? Because I was a very innocent kid. I always saw the best in people. I was real. Look at the sunset and think, what could be in. But as you get older, right? So I'm 21, right? And you go through life and you realize that people can be, are not always as good as you think they are. Like, as I've gotten older, you see Han's point of view a lot more. And that ties back to Ben as well. This whole of people are not always who you think they are. That's what's great about Star Wars. That you can link to characters in such a way that you've such a spectrum.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I love that about this universe.
I do too.
The psychology.
Do you know what I was really hoping for in this is I wanted there to be a scene between Chewie and Kylo.
Really?
Oh, yeah. That's his. Yeah, it's his uncle, man. And to me, like, where Han's off, like, he probably, like, Chewie was around even though when he was gone with Han, but like, Chewie could have taken him out, and Chewie clipped him, and like, Chewie made a choice, and like, Chewie tried to kill him as well. It's what I'm saying. He could have killed him, and he didn't. Like, he could have gone for a headshot, but instead he shot him in the side. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm assuming he tried to kill him when he did that. That's what I always.
You think he did? I don't think he did. I don't think he did.
If you go watch it again, there's hesitation. Yeah.
And like,
I think he could have killed him. Like,
Chewie's a sharpshooter, man. Like, you know what I mean? And like, I feel like if he wanted Kylo dead, Kylo would have been dead.
Do you feel Kylo reforging the mask and doing what he's told by Palpatine? Do you feel that undoes what happens in Last Jedi? Because I don't, and I have reasons for that. But I want to hear what you guys think of that.
Well, the whole thing in the mask, I think part of it is Vader, but I think the other part of it is like he's trying to hide his lineage from those around him. Like, Leia is a pretty prominent person in the galaxy, right? So she's going to be in the spotlight. Default, he's going to be in the spotlight growing up as well, and like it or not, like, he's one of these celebrity kids that we see on TMZ, right? Like it's what he is. So I think he uses the mask to hide it, and I think him putting it back together. I think it's him kind of, again, I think it's that internal struggle where he's ping-ponging back and forth between the light and the dark. And I think he uses that mask more as a tool. And I think it's really to hide his true agenda. So I think him putting it back together is just one more way of kind of seizing control of the First Order now that Snoke's dead. Like, this is how people recognize him. This is how they know him. And I mean, I think it is a tool that kind of incites fear in people. And I just think it's one more tool he uses to get closer to the Emperor.
I have a question also. Is there enough here with Kylo to make it feel as though he's been redeemed? I think this guy killed Han Solo. Like, he was part of a plan that blew up multiple planets. Is there enough redemption here?
Well, was there enough redemption with Anakin? Because I think most people seem to think that he was redeemed. Not that it made up for what he did, but that he died a better person.
But see, the thing is that he killed. Well, I mean, we thought he killed Palpatine, right? He killed the person behind it all. But like in this, like if Rey kills Palpatine, you know, Rey tag teaming with a few Force ghosts kill Palpatine, like what does Kylo do to redeem himself?
I think Kylo probably is instrumental in that. You know, like the big thing I thought from doing the research in that is that the third act is still, the details are still pretty sparse. I still think Kylo plays a bigger part in that than we think he does. I think he has to.
I hope so.
Man, when you said that, Bobby, the first thing that went through my mind is that line that Rose says about, like, you know, we save the galaxy by what is it? Not by killing
the things we hate, but saving the things we love.
Saving the love, and I think that was, I mean, if you think back to Jedi, that was a single act, like him, Anakin throwing him over. He saved his son, like he didn't save the world,
right?
He saved his son. Saving the world was a second hand, or saving the galaxies. He thought he was saving Luke at that point,
right? No, I agree.
And I think that I think Kylo's going to be the same thing. I think he's going to save Rey, and in turn, like, defeat Palpatine. And again, I think there's going to be some echo there where, you know, his actions to help to destroy Palpatine, it's kind of selfish in the beginning because he's trying to save Rey, because I truly feel like, I think he's got, you know, there's some chemistry there. There's some like, I don't want to call it a love interest, but there's definitely some attraction there.
Right.
So I think that's part of it. I think he's going to save Rey. He's going to redeem it. Now, to your point, I think he did kill Kylo, or Kylo killing his dad. I think that was twofold. One, I think it was we had to set him up to be the big bad to kind of redeem him at the end. But like the other part of it is like he may have truly hated his father. Like if he was gone all the time, like you could have taken me. You couldn't, like, you didn't have to leave me here with mom and to leave me with, you know, whatever attendee I have. Like, you abandoned me. There's probably some anger and some hatred there.
See, I don't think he did hate his father. And that's the thing, because he says in Last Jedi, Rey asks him, why did you do it? Like, I've listened to Rian Johnson talking about this, and all she wants is a family. And Kylo had a family. And she's like, why did you throw it all away? And she asks, why did you hate your father? And he goes, I didn't hate him. You know, destroy the past. And the reason he destroys the past is because ultimately he does love his father. And as long as his father is around, he will never, ever truly be able to give himself to the path that he knows he has to, which is the dark side. I think that's why he killed his father. As to what could kill Leia, I don't know. I think that's more complicated. But I like that because it adds layers to his character. We could debate this for 20 years.
It's always more complicated with your mother. But anyway, I got to wrap this up because I got to have dinner with the kids and have a little hangout time. So, gentlemen, it was a fucking pleasure. Fucking pleasure.
Right.
I thoroughly enjoyed this. Maybe we can set this up again sometime in the future.
I would love to do that.
All right.
100% game.
I'm on board. Or it'd be nice to even recap after 9. I'm sure we're all going to be talked out about it, but
or maybe even
it would be kind of cool.
Maybe after every big event, like we're doing Force Friday.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do something after the trailer and then something after the movie.
Yeah,
I'd be down for that.
All right, beautiful.
100%. Is
there anywhere that you boys want to put out for people to follow you or like you or do any of that kind of shit?
I'm pretty good. I'll keep most of my shit private, so y'all know.
Fair enough.
Y'all can just listen to me here, and that's as far as we're going.
And if you're enjoying any of the Force Friday videos, know that you owe Andy some thanks because he does a lot for me behind the scenes that I can't ever kind of compensate him for.
Want my check in the mail.
Right.
Wow.
Get it done. Look, I love that shit. Go ahead, man.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I don't want to say a lift in the videos, but like there's definitely been, I don't want to say quality because I don't want to take a shot at you, Bobby. So don't take this wrong.
No, I'm not.
But like I've even hit you up on some of them. And it's been like, man, dude, that was spot on, like perfect, you know.
Right.
And your contributions are being felt. How's that? But yeah, I mean, my stuff's out there, so you guys can go Monday night on Enter the Realm with the Jackal Squad. Always a great time. You'll find me there defending Star Wars feverishly against some of them.
It's our lot in life.
It's very much. Hey, it's my cross to carry. Yeah. So you can find me there, Tyler the Collector on Instagram, if you want to see me scribble with some markers. And then posting pictures of hot toys and things I find funny that I come across. Yeah, that's it.
Beautiful. Thank you guys, and to the Patreon folks, you'll get this, and then I'll tack this on to a Nerd Rage show, not this coming week, but maybe the week after. So I'll talk to you boys later.